Our world continues to change and push us in ways we have not been challenged before. On this show, we talk about these challenges, how to be aware of them, face them, and overcome them in your life. This is David Waldas, creator of the Aligned Living System.
And I'm Nick Musica, Aligned Living Coach. Welcome to the Aligned Living System podcast.
Welcome to the Aligned Living System podcast. This is David Waldas here with Nick Musica. I'm pretty excited about what we're going to talk about today because it's the latest development of what Aligned Living's turned into. It's the Aligned Living Institute, which is a program for training coaches to do what I do, to teach the Aligned Living System, all the tools involved in this. And I've been training coaches since 2019 maybe?
I think 18 at least. Yeah.
18. Oh yeah, that's because Nick was one of the first ones. So 6 years I've been training coaches, and it's been a secret program. It's been I'm working with people and I feel their potential and I go, hey, would you like to learn how to do this too? And I've taught them in small batches and probably turned 20 coaches out through this. And it's become a whole new direction for this, which we'll talk about. But I thought I'd welcome Nick first here, one of the original Aligned Living coaches. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. How are you? Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. We're recording on a Saturday morning here, right after Thanksgiving, since we took the Friday off after Thanksgiving when we normally record. So this is us on a Saturday morning.
That's true.
Yeah, here we are. So yeah, it was funny. Like I had this feeling like I just wanted to keep it so small. Like I wanted to protect all the information, and for good reason, right? I didn't want anybody teaching it. It as the rest of the Aligned Living protocols came into place, the rest of the tools, which happened in the last few months, it really became this cohesive system that interconnects and all the pieces work together and it flows together. And I realized kind of how bomb-proof it is, and that it's something that can be taught, by anybody that's really, interested in coaching and wants to bring this way of being to other people. It's something that it feels like a wide range of people can teach it now. Whereas before, I think it was such a fluid experience that I felt like it had to be very specific people that could teach this information or teach the energetics of it. And now it's so solidified that I feel like it's something that I can turn over and turn out to the world and turn out to anybody that's interested in, bringing this system to people, that it's ready, that it's solid enough in and of itself. I hope that makes sense, but it's something that is a solidified, integrated program now, and that's super exciting to me.
Yeah. So it's time.
Absolutely.
Time to bring it forward. Yeah. So who are good candidates for this? I mean, you just described who they were, but like who are they today, David?
Yeah, so I think a lot of the people that are going to be going through it are people that are already doing some form of coaching, some sort of counseling, maybe even doing intuitive sessions, people that work with empaths, people that work with high performers, people that have been doing a lot of this type of work. There's three main groups that I coach, and so I think it's going to fit that same category as, the empaths that are ready to recognize their gift in a different way, that are ready to, not get trapped in their sensitivities, but able to utilize them to serve in a whole nother way. For the high performers that just want to be that much more clear inside themselves and that much more focused and that much more intuitive and not distracted by what's not relevant. And then, what I jokingly call the spiritual junkies, which are the people that have gone to program after program. And at the end of the day, they feel like, God, there's still something missing. I've gone through all this personal growth and it hasn't just congealed for me into this solidness inside me. And those people seem to be the ones that may even love this the most, because they're like, this is the integration. These are the pieces I've been looking for by going to Tony Robbins and going to Brendon Burchard and going to all these events. Now I get to bring it all together. And so
that's great. That integration piece is, at least for me, when you said that, I was like, oh yeah, that's the truth right there for me, is that's the huge huge benefit is bringing all this home and laying it out and living through it.
Yeah, and the idea that it's a system that locks together, it's, I may have shared a bit of this on here, but it's so fun for me because when I get the downloads for it, I don't know what it is. Like I just start playing with it, teaching it to others, and then I see how the system just integrates and locks together. And these last, 4 new downloads we got, or that I got, that I added to the system, like they're the ones that just lock in the rest of the piece. Third of the program used to be much more kind of out there, much more spiritual, much more tuning into the higher frequencies. And, it was great and it was really enjoyable, but it didn't help us be that much more solid here.
Yeah.
And to me, that's what Aligned Living's really become, is this place of how to show up in our aligned self, in our spiritual self, in our connected self, and in our pragmatic, making a big impact here, because the world needs us right now. The world needs all of that energy coming in and stabilizing itself and restructuring what's happening. And that's what this is. This is a grounded kind of new earth that we're for looking at it from a spiritual perspective, but it's from a pragmatic perspective, it's like a way to operate that brings our highest version of us to the world and influences other people around us to do the same.
Yeah.
And it's contagious, and it's powerful how big of an impact we have as we're doing it. And, see example after example. And, more than not now, most of my clients are really influential people, particularly my one-to-one clients. And it's really cool to watch this show up in their field and their system and their way of being, and then just run through the people that they influence. And, the idea that we can actually work with coaches now to train them to get this out there, it's like building an army of people to create this movement. And it's exciting.
Yeah, super cool. Super cool. So should we take some time to just relive the story of how the system started? Is that a good idea?
Yeah. No, I think it's so fun, right? I was thinking about. Yeah, I was thinking it's so fun going back to 2016, right? When I was on that vacation, living in Southern California, living in San Diego and Encinitas, heading to Colorado where I used to live, and we're driving through Vail, Colorado, going down I-70 around that curvy road. And the last corner before the pass, coming up at the corner, I remember seeing this huge, beautiful rainbow coming down. And as I came around the corner, I realized, like, that's coming down right into the highway. We're going to drive into it. And as we did, we were just covered in these refracted rainbows. I remember looking at the backseat, my daughters Olivia and Ava were just like, what? We were all just like, it was on our faces, on our hands. And there was a couple driving in the car next to us, and they had their hands up in the air too. They were just like, what is going on? I'm always curious whatever happened to them. But in that moment, I popped into the aligned living state of consciousness. It was just like instantaneous. And I got a download that felt like a zip file that was just like, here's the information. Here's how to teach it. Here's, what the basics of the system are. Here's who you're supposed to work with. And I was actually going to meet up with some clients in Colorado and spending a few days there to do sessions. And the next day was when the sessions were. And so right away, I started teaching this system. And it took about 3 years, I would say, really to unpack it, make it the aligned living system. And it was funny at first. I love sometimes I feel like I'm so naive to stuff. The first version of it was, I thought it'd be focused for empaths and highly sensitive people. And so I called it the HSP solution. And, thinking to me like, yeah, like I'm a highly sensitive person. Like we have a dilemma here. We have a challenge, which says, our sensitivities make this a really challenging world to live in. And I got so much shit for saying that highly sensitive people needed a solution, because that insinuated that they had a problem, that there was something wrong. I'm like, maybe that's. And so I put all this into, like, I created the marketing, the website and the logo, and launched the first programs. And it didn't get, like, the content got received really well, but the packaging got so much pushback of, like, this defensiveness, right? Like what a highly sensitive thing to do to get defensive and become offended that I'm saying that there's a solution necessary for this sensitivity that we have. And so, I think it was misunderstood, the idea of like, we can do this better. Like, we don't need to get so hijacked and overwhelmed by our sensitivities and by our empathic abilities. And, that turned into, a 6-week program that I was teaching.
Mm-hmm.
And then as I taught it more, I realized that the 7th week was when the biggest breakthroughs were happening. And so then it became a 10-week program as it became aligned living.
Yeah.
And, it just, I think I got a channel for, the name, and it just came through very clearly, like, this is what it is. And, when I had a healing center back in Colorado years ago, it was called Soul Path Living, which was also a channeled name. And so it was kind of cool. Like, this was the kind of the new version of Soul Path Living was aligned living. And, it started out just teaching a handful of people, working with a few one-to-one people.
Mm-hmm.
And then it kept growing to, the programs that it is now, and the high performers and the influential people that I get to work with now. And it just kind of kept the next version of it. And
Yeah.
so it's pretty exciting where we are. That was 2016 when I got the first download. And
Yeah.
so 8 years ago, coming up 8.5 years ago, really, because it was the summertime.
Yeah. I feel like I've gotten like a front row seat to a lot of this.
You did, yeah, yeah. I mean, you've been a big part of it. Like, Nick and I have had meeting after meeting where we reworked, like, how do we describe what the hell this thing is? What is the call-in that people are going to answer and go, yes, this is what I need. This is what I want in my life. And how many versions do you think we've written of the copy and the
I
perspective?
lost track.
I remember going through like Donald Miller's marketing book, and
Oh yeah.
we went through Brendan Burchard's program. We went
Yeah.
through this
Yeah.
other program. I did with Callan Rush, this Canadian woman that, like, we plugged into all these systems trying to dial it in. I've hired people to to take it and dial it in, which is what's on my website now. And now there's this kind of the next level of it that we're talking about. Like, we need to rework it all again for it to really land for people of what is this integrated system that
Yeah.
takes them into a new way of being, where they just become so much more deeply locked in and connected with themselves and bring themselves to the world.
Yeah. Yeah. It's super cool. I remember coming to you. I mean, this was 2017-ish, and for really personal coaching,
Yeah.
as it turned out.
Right.
And I think it was 6 weeks at a time. I think that was the setup at that point. And the
Yeah,
first
before I
6
realized the
weeks.
7th week was the breakthrough week.
Yeah. Yeah. In the first 6 weeks, I did 3 rounds of 6.
Yeah.
And the first 6 weeks were like the Harrison and me and my job and operating and like finding out what I wanted. Right. And I don't think we got fully through it. And that's why but there's progress. Like there was a shift. There was things were moving and grooving. And so it was super attractive for more of this.
Right.
And maybe you mentioned, I think it was just part of the conversation. Like there's this coaching thing that I'm working on, and I was like, oh, that's cool. But I had no interest in what that was.
Why would you? You were just trying to get your shit straight.
Right. It's true. And then at the end of the second 6 weeks, I remember going, so tell me about this coaching thing. So you can work with me to work with other people to do something similar. Is that what you're saying? Yeah. And the transformation, I think the awareness is probably the best word for me. The awareness of what you were doing and how you were doing it. That was sort of, like this. I just didn't have the experience with it. But working with you directly, I started to gain the experience and this sort of cloudy description of things, because I just never was. It just wasn't my world. Started to really solidify, and and the words had context and had experience. And so when that third round came through, when I asked, can you help me? Can you help me learn how to do this for other people? Like, that was super exciting. That was fantastic.
I remember that. It was cool. I was so psyched when you were like, I want to actually be able to do this too, not just for myself. And because a big part of this too, and I always talk about this when I'm presenting people with the idea of, like, what do you think of training to be a coach, is this idea of when we start to teach something, it takes and it moves us from the student to the teacher position. It moves us from I'm in responsibility for myself, but there's also somebody else kind of taking care of me
Yeah.
to, oh, I'm actually the one in charge here. And that transition for our own personal development is massive because we stop looking somewhere else for who's going to take charge of this situation. And, I think whenever we're learning something from anybody, there's a piece of like, oh, they're the expert. I'm integrating this no matter how much I have expertise in different areas. And when we take over and go, okay, today I become the expert in this, it's like, woof, all of a sudden it lands in our system. And
Yeah.
a big part of it, like the very beginning, the first class of the Aligned Living coaching program, the training is we received the download that I received in 2016. I haven't had the rainbow show up, but I've had, just the energetic experience where it's like this zip file that just shows up and people, and they're just like this is profound moment of something shifted. And, like when we take that on and go, okay, I'm going to take this deeper level of responsibility for myself, this deeper ownership for how I show up, because now I'm responsible for bringing this to others. There's something that happens at an intellectual level. There's something that happens at an energetic level. There's something that happens at an identity level. And it just brings us to another level of clarity of who we are, how grounded we become inside of ourselves, how connected we are to our truest self. And like there's always this massive jump acceleration.
Yeah.
And I think that in and of itself, because I've trained a lot of clients or a lot of coaches that aren't necessarily doing it out in the world, but maybe here and there, or they're integrating stuff they're already doing, but their practice jumped massively by doing the training.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't have a practice.
Yeah.
I think back and I was like, man, I was as interested as I was at the time. I was probably a bad candidate for it, right? Like I had no idea what we're getting into. Like I when I met you, I was like walking into crystal stores calling them rocks, and I still call them rocks. So it's more of a term of endearment these days than like
A
you
pet
know,
name. Yeah.
yeah. And so I learned a bunch of how the world of energetics works through you.
Sure.
Uh, and it was sort of in theory until it became practical. And that was the shift between like the last day of the second 6 weeks and the first
Right.
day of the third 6 weeks for me.
Yeah. That makes sense.
And that changed my perception of the world and what I'm doing and why I'm doing. Because I came to you like, what am I doing with myself? What
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
what am I doing with this full time job and this repeated full time job, right? And so I was working on, and I didn't know it at the time. I was working on stepping out of the next full time job into my own full time job.
Yeah. Yeah. Creating your own entrepreneurial venture.
Yeah. Yeah. And what that would mean and what that would look like and the right reasons to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so then in hindsight, I sort of laugh and I go, bad candidate, dude, you were the perfect candidate for this thing. Like, who are you kidding? Right. But I just didn't know at the time.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, I felt that for sure when you were like, "This is going to be really interesting in Nick's world for him to step into this role." And it kind of reminds me of becoming a parent too. Like, the idea of like we're living our life, for us, figuring it out, and maybe for our, in our relationship and that, and then all of a sudden there's this new baby, and like this new thing we're responsible for. And I mean, maybe you can see it like starting a business. You can see it like a lot of things. But the moment there's another entity, so to speak, like another thing you're responsible for, whether it's a baby or a business or a way of being that you're delivering to others, it just creates a relationship with it that you have to take seriously. That you have to step up in a way that's it amplifies everything, and just it's like doubling down on your commitment to yourself, because the commitment goes beyond yourself.
Yeah. 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 I think one of the biggest benefits, and I certainly didn't know at the time, but I mean, there's a phrase of like, is this in resonance with you? Right.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
and like that, we could talk about that at like on an academic level, and
Mm-hmm.
we can talk about what that looks like and feels like. But it's sort
Mm-hmm.
of at this academic level,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Until you're able to actually experience what resonance actually is, like actually
Mm-hmm.
feel it, right? You're
Yeah.
not just talking about, just like feel it, David. There's a
It's
difference
it's
between,
a theory until it's a practice. Yeah.
yeah, even when you use the word feel it in theory. It's still theoretical until you
Mm-hmm.
actually do feel it. And this
Yeah.
work has helped me actually feel what is in resonance and what's not.
Yeah.
Um,
Then it becomes your reference point and where you make decisions from.
yeah. I mean, I was about 2-ish years ago. I created a DBA, doing business as part
Mm-hmm.
of the work
Mm-hmm.
that I'm doing. And I
Mm-hmm.
was super excited about it. I was super
Yeah.
stoked about it. And, I went to the bank and I got it set up. And there was one day I was driving around, I was coming home and I'm like, I'm going to work on this thing now. Like I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
put this business in play. And
Mm-hmm.
I was very excited about it. And there was absolutely zero resonance,
Mm-hmm.
even with the excitement that I had to it. It was just complete. I felt
Yeah.
flat with it.
Yeah. Yeah. It was an idea that you hoped would create something,
Yeah.
even though you couldn't feel what it was creating. That's huge, and
Yeah.
that's you know and I think there's another element to this too. Is like alignment is about going to the place where we're in touch with who we truly are.
Mm.
And people go, "Oh, I know resonance," but if we're not making decisions through, if we're making decisions through resonance, but we're not aligning with who we truly are before we do that, all we're feeling is a resonance with where we're at. And this was a really confusing thing for me because I would get resonance and I'd be like, "Oh, I'm going to create this," but it was some subversion of me. Not
Yeah.
subversive, but like a different version of me that wasn't really my alignment. It was like where I was living and I was stabilized in that place. This was my identity. And I'd feel the resonance with that identity. And I'd create that and it would fall short, right? It was missing something because I wasn't resonating with myself. And
Yeah.
so the other aspect of making decisions from resonance is if you're not resonating with yourself when you make that decision, it doesn't matter that you're using resonance. In fact, it's actually, steering yourself away from your truest self because you're resonating with the egoic self or the identity self. And maybe it's not even feeling egoic, but maybe there's a trauma that's put us here, whatever it is, where we're not really in resonance with our truest alignment. And when we make resonance-based decisions from that, we just keep getting more of the same. But when we
Yeah.
slide in here, bam, like that piece is huge.
Yeah. It's cool. I mean, it's like in order to tune a guitar, you need something like a tuning fork, something to
Yeah, you
tune the
can't just
guitar
tune
with.
it to another untuned guitar.
Yeah. Just doesn't work. Yeah. And
No,
so
you could, but then you just both be out of tune.
this
And
used to be
that's what
awful.
most people using resonance do is because we have so much shit going on in our lives and so much that we've experienced that of course, like we need support to be in alignment. And if we're using resonance
Yeah.
as a decision making tool, like we need a tuning fork. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's a great way of saying it.
Yeah. I mean, so you sort of become the tuning fork.
Yeah, yeah. You tune yourself and then you use that tuned self in order to make decisions.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's a really cool thing that we're unlocking here or describing.
Yeah.
And it's funny. Last night, my girlfriend and I went for a walk, and like it hit me really clear. I was like, God, this is one of the few times in life where I felt that resonance. Where I'm like, oh, the Aligned Living Institute, teaching other people, building an army of people to bring the Aligned Living tools to the world, like that. Like just feeling like this, like zero resistance in me. Like this attunement with it, this lining up, and just feeling the power running through me. Because whenever I've any other version we created with Aligned Living, any of the marketing we redid or the systems, there was always like a little bit of a hesitancy, a little bit of like, let's see how this gets out there. And this is like let's hit the launch button. And feeling that kind of alignment and clarity, it was just like shit. Okay, this is like when I felt this a handful of times in my life, like this shit happens and in a powerful way. And it was really like, wow, okay, it reminded me of Brendan Burchard's, like the overnight success story that, is just preceded by 20 years of hard work. And so it's really fun to talk about, granted, like it was working long before the Aligned Living download. Like I felt like I had to prepare so much to get that download and go through all this personal development and do all the work I'd been doing. And then, that was 8 years ago. So it's been another 8.5 years of developing that. And here we are overnight, clarity,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and I feel like this is hitting the launch button and here we go. And who's in, who wants to bring this to the world? Who's coming with me? Who's coming with us?
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be health coaches, that want to add another dimension because so many health coaches are like, God, I see all the stuff that's changing their life with diet and that, but it's just so much deeper. It's the emotional, it's the energetics, it's all these things. And I want to help people at a deeper level. And I think they're going to be a huge portion of the people that we're training, or traditional coaches, authors, like just, even business managers. Like I've seen incredible results for the way people lead their team
Yeah,
from their alignment. And, like the application is in every aspect of life because it
totally.
is, aligned living, right? It's not aligned subcategory of living.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, creating from this space, I was talking to a friend this past week, and she's like, this thing just isn't jazzing me up anymore. And like, I can feel her just being like low. Right.
Yeah.
And then she lights up and she's like, did I tell you about my paintings? Let me tell you about my paintings.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she's just lighting up talking about her paintings.
Mhm.
And it occurred to me, like, when we're in this space creating whatever we're creating, that there's a little bit of us that goes on that paper,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
The paper, using the painting as the example,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
there's a little
On
bit of our
canvas.
signature that
Yeah.
falls on that paper.
Mhm.
And that helps to, going back to resonance, for other people who are looking for a higher resonance, for looking
Mm.
for something that's in line with them. That's why I think this is why you look at something and go, I don't know, but I need to have it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Right? There's something to it you just need to have. You can't look away from it. You can't walk out of the store without it.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
this can really help create whatever it is that you want to create, to get in front of the people that you want to get in front of for the impact you're looking to make.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just now it's time, it's like I just keep seeing that, like building this army of people that want to create this movement and want to create this change in themselves and with everybody around them. And you know, like I keep going back, like it keeps putting a smile on my face. All these like remembering like where we came from and how it just like I kept feeling like when I first got the download, like God, this is so good. Why aren't more people responding? And I remember the movie Old School with Will Ferrell when he was like,
The quad.
he, yeah, we're streaking the quad. And
Mm-hmm.
he's like running by naked, and they're like, who's we? And he looks behind him, and nobody's following him. He's just running down the street naked. Like it's felt like that for a long time because it's like it just wasn't solidified enough. It was like all the pieces were here. It wasn't the right timing yet. I was talking to people that were just like, what is he talking about for years? And people be like, I like it. It makes a big difference in my life, but I still don't even know what the hell we're doing. And to like now, current time, like when we talk about this, people are like, oh, yeah, I need like this shit changes things. This is what I need in my life. This is what I need to get in touch with me at a deeper level. And so it's funny when something comes in ahead of its time and then its
Mm.
time catches up with it. Like that's now. And, now when we streak the quad, we can have thousands of people joining us.
Great.
Maybe I need a new analogy. I don't know.
Well, I think it works. Yeah.
But how exciting that is! Like it's resonant. Like it's people go, yes, this is what I've been looking for, and I keep
Yeah.
hearing that over and over again. And the moment they start doing the work, they're like, everything's different now. Everything's different. This is what I've
Yeah.
needed. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Foundational. Yeah.
foundational. Yeah, yeah. It's like there's before line living and after, and I mean that's how my life has been. And and that's what I hear from clients. Like when we do this work, they go, it's new now. I'm new now. I'm more in touch
Yeah.
with me,
Yeah.
and that changes everything.
I agree. I relate to that one.
Yeah, yeah. So exciting. So if this is interesting to you, we're going to be launching really soon. Like all the particulars are coming together and the exact pieces and the details, which will be funny how that keeps freezing right when I got to talk about the. Hmm. Actually, so if this is interesting to you, if this feels like something that you want to be part of this army of folks that we're building to bring this movement to the world, to stabilize it at another level, whether you've done aligned living work or not, like there isn't a prerequisite for the coaching program to have gone through one of the programs. And I used to be, but I realized integrating the 10-week program into the beginning of the coach training is just how we're going to do it. And that way it matches up with people that are maybe you're already a health coach, maybe you're already coaching some other manner or managing people or just want to grow your business some way or want to start coaching. Like this is going to, this system is going to include all of that. And so if you're interested in this, respond to us, go on the webpage and send us a message. There's going to make sure you're getting on the mailing list too, because we're going to be sending more information out as we start the first programs of this. And so if you're not on the mailing list already, get on the mailing list. There's a place to send contacts through the webpage through davidwaldas.com. And, let me know, because we're going to be starting the first cohort of coaches with the new moniker of the Aligned Living Institute very, very soon. So in the new year, great way to kick it off. And so hope this inspires you, and that you're feeling called to be part of it, or even just want more information. Please do reach out, because I can just feel how fast this thing's going to take off. And here we go. Super exciting. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for listening. Have a great week. We hope you enjoyed listening to today's podcast. And if you did, please subscribe so you can catch the next episode. If you want to learn more about the Aligned Living System and how it could support you in your life, check out davidwaldas.com.